Good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to this Cluster Act webinar, Ready to Nautical Activities. It's a pleasure to continue with these activities in the framework of Cluster Act project that, as I said before, is tailored to support investments in the maritime sector. Today we will focus one of the three sectors that we will we are targeting in the project, so nautical activities, and we have with us Stefano Pagani from Confindustria Nautica from Italy, that is the Italian Marine Industry Association. So welcome, Stefano. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, and we will start with the presentation, and then I just remind you to the audience that there is a possibility to pose some questions to the speaker through the application, and later on we will dedicate a few minutes at the end of the webinar to give an answer to eventual questions or curiosity that the audience can have. So I'm just leaving the stage to you, and just thanking you again, and please hope all the audience to enjoy the webinar.
Thank you for the opportunity. I will immediately start the presentation. Just a second, please. Okay, so this presentation will be in three parts. The first one will be a general view of the sector, so the recreational marine industry. The second one will be focused on the Italian peculiarities of our industry. And the third part will focus on the technological innovation in boating. So just starting with presentation of the Italian Marine Industry Association. It was founded in 1967, and it represents the entire recreational boating sector in Italy. This means all the industry connected to boat building, to equipment, marine equipment manufacturing, and to tourism services like marinas, like brokerage, like dealers, etc. So as the National Association for this industry, we work in order to grow the marine sector through lobbying, through processing market intelligence data, to promote the marine culture, and to encourage boating tourism. We even play an important role in the international governing bodies of our industry. In particular, we are members of EBI, the European Boating Industry Federation, and ICOMIA, which is the global international federation of the industry associations. Actually, today we at the presidency of ICOMIA, and in EBI we've got the past president sitting in the board of directors. As the Italian Association, we even organized and produced the Genoa International Boat Show, the biggest one in the Mediterranean, and one of the most important ones at global level. And it is held in Genova in September. So now let's start with a view of the recreational marine industry in general. So let's understand what is the marine industry. So it's just connected to leisure. So all the commercial activities, but even the cruise, the transportation are not our industry. We're just focused on leisure, on recreation. And so we just ask you to go boating, as there are many ways to enjoy water, as you can see in the slide. We've got sailing, fishing, just relaxing in your boat, or going kayaking, windsurfing, whale watching, or just having fun. So there are many ways to enjoy water, and it is possible going on a boat. So which are the main facts and figures about our industry? So it's a really popular activity all around the world, but in particular in Europe, in North America, and in Australia and New Zealand. In Europe, we've got 36 million of boaters, which are much more in North America, which is the most important area for boats and boating, with 100 million boats. We've got a fleet of around 30 million boats, and the majority, around 90% of these 30 million boats, are small boats, generally trailer boats. And we've got 25,000 marinas where the boats can stay all around the year. So if the demand is high, there are relevant effects in the industry, with 100,000 companies, generally small and medium enterprises, 1 million direct employees, but much more in the services, in the related supply chain. And just for manufacturing, with a focus on boat building, over 45 billion euros of turnover globally. So it's a niche sector, but as you will see later, it's an important sector for the industry and the tourism. The glamorous segment of luxury just represents 2% of the industry in volume. So boating is affordable for the middle income earners, and it's quite common in many areas of our planet. As I told you before, our industry has one of the longest and most complex supply chains. If you see in the slides, yards, so boat builders, boat manufacturers are linked with the marine tourism and services. So all the tourism related sector, but they are strictly connected with the equipment, engine manufacturers, service providers for maintenance, repair, and for the super yachts for refitting services. So there are many jobs in the whole sector that must be considered, and many opportunities for investors even. Due to this long supply chain, among the maritime economies, boat building has got one of the highest multipliers related to added value and to jobs. €1 invested in boat building generates more than €7 in the supply chain, and for one job in boat building, almost 10 other jobs are generated in the supply chain. So it's really complex, and investing in boat building can give a lot of work to other related services sectors. So this is quite strategic for us. And it's important as a peculiarity of our sector that there are many ways to enjoy water, and these different ways are really linked to the different cultures. So different seas, different cultures. What boating means in one country doesn't mean that it will be the same in another country. So enjoying water in Northern Europe can be really different from what it means in the Mediterranean or in the Caribbean or in other seas. So it's important to remember that when you want to invest, when you want to build a boat, you must remember that every boater, every country have got their own boating habits and different recreational preferences to understand in order to target the demand in the right way in order to supply the right product. So it's really difficult to understand that at the beginning, when you invest in a boat building company or in a service supplier or in an equipment manufacturer, you must remember where you want to sell your product, because it's really different one market from another one. So globally, we've got different types of markets. And in this slide, you can see the different maturities of the markets. So if Europe, North America, and Australia, New Zealand, and in some parts even Japan are traditional markets where you're quite sure what you have to sell and how to sell it, there are many other markets where it's more difficult because for political reasons, for economic reasons, financial, or simply for the fact that the market is quite new, like in the Gulf, in Brazil, in South Africa, in Russia. The markets are developing, but they are generally, in the last year, they've been really still and not moving in the right direction. Then there are many different emerging markets, like South America, Colombia, Peru, Chile or Argentina, in the Asian area, India and Sri Lanka, in Southeast, Thailand, Singapore, and in the future we've got Indonesia that will have a leading role. Then South Korea, which is a country in which the government invested a lot in marinas and in giving the possibility for the new middle class to enjoy boating sports. And then a big question mark, that is China. 10 years ago, a lot of European and North American companies decided to invest or try to invest in the Chinese market, but for different reasons, political, but especially for the fact of a lack of marine culture, the situation is that today we've got some nice marinas that are completely empty, and the Chinese people, if they want to go boating, they go elsewhere, so in the Mediterranean or in the Caribbean, and not in Chinese seas. There are even some difficulties for regulations, for technical regulations, for the fact that it's a market for the moment targeted just for the luxury sector, and so there are some challenges to understand in the next years. But other important, interesting markets like Southeast Asia or even Sri Lanka, where there are some investments for the future, or Colombia, where the United States have invested a lot, can be interesting for the future decade. And which are the trends, the global trends for the future? So this is the trends for 2009, for the second part of 2019. We've got some updates on this map. It will be ready in a few days for the first semester of 2020. but as you can see, generally Europe is positive. For 2020, you will not see the red arrows with a reduction of turnover in UK and in Turkey. It's going to be positive for different reasons. For UK, because with the Brexit, they've got new expectations for the exports, and Turkey has got now a more positive political situation, and so the tourism sector in Turkey will go better this summer. In the rest of the world, the situation will be quite similar. As you can see, Asia, maybe now with the situation in China, even the areas of Hong Kong and Taiwan that were positive last year could see a reduction. But Australia and New Zealand will be positive, Japan should be positive. South America is always a question mark, because even if it's a positive situation, it's not an important market in this moment. Even if in Brazil especially, boating is considered a normal sporting activity, in the last year we had some problems. US is going really well. They've got, for the 7th consecutive year, a growth in the market, and as it's the most important market in the world, it's going to lead the general sales of boats and equipment manufacturing. So, looking at the exports, that is really important for some countries like Italy, for instance. There are many opportunities and some barriers to consider. So the opportunities, as you can see, are disclosing new markets and especially going to find new customers. Or in the traditional markets, it can be interesting for some companies to show new types of products, of boats, to traditional customers that can be used to different products. Then you should consider the opportunities to compete on price or quality. And for the Italian situation, obviously, the competition is on the quality of product. And then it's obvious that to export, you've got to show your product during B2Bs, fairs, or to the most important globally boat shows that are generally in North America, in Europe, or in some parts of Asia. What about barriers? So, as it's a traditional activity, as boat building is a traditional activity in North America and Europe, there are well-settled competitors that work in a good way locally, but in some activities, exports are really important. As I told you before, the different boaters' habits and the sea weather environment is really important. And then you've got to remember that in some markets, the technical regulations, the certifications, and the standards may be different than the ones of your referral market. This is not a problem in Europe, as till 24 meters long boats, you have a directive, that is the same for all European countries, and that in the last year we managed to align with the US regulations. So generally, a product that is ready for the European market can be adjusted and made ready for the US market and vice versa without big technical problems. The most important problem in this moment, obviously, are tariffs and import taxes, especially with economic trade war between the US and Europe, and especially Europe has put some boating products in the countermeasures against the Trump's tariffs. So we've got to see what will happen in the next months, but this could cause some damages to our sector. Then in some new markets, it's important to have a look at red tape on trade and distribution. Generally, without a distributor, a local distributor, it's not possible to work in that country. And another important thing for boat shows is participating in the right ones and thinking about the transport costs of the boats. As boats are big, transport costs a lot of money, and generally it's better to understand how many boats you should transfer to the boat show, expecting that you will sell it in order not to have to transport again back. So now we can have a look at the second peculiarity of our sector, so the broad range of activities in the industry. So we've got not just boat building, but as I told you before, marine equipment and tourism. So as you can see, there are many types of boats that can be produced, and many types of boats can be sold depending on the type of market. So as you can see, there are many different models, from outboards to super yachts, from dinghies to catamarans, from reeds, which are the rigid inflatable boats that are really common in the Mediterranean, to pontoon boats or fishing boats, or obviously sailboats. Looking at the marine equipment business, there are many opportunities to look at. We've got two branches of equipment, so marine equipment with accessories focus, and on the other sector, the engines, which are generally of two types. So we've got outboard boats that are generally manufactured in North America, in Japan, and in two cases in Europe. Or inboard boats, and in this case there are, I would say, 5 to 10 competitors globally, and they are coming from the US and from Europe mainly. Marine engines generally derive from other type of non-road or road engines that are in a second moment marinized and adapted to our needs. So about equipment, generally these are high quality productions. R&D is fundamental because the production is pushed by innovation. We've got many different national, local, or global regulatory requirements that can change rapidly. So if you do not innovate, you are out of the market. Then the consumer needs fast evolution in technology. Obviously not for the basic equipment that is needed for for the engine. The consumer technology is really important, and maybe you should change it in your boat after 2 or 3 years. So it's a really evolving market. Then you've got increasing service levels that are requested by the consumers, and the characteristic of these years is the growing need of customization of products, not just requested by boat builders, but pushed by the needs and the request of consumers. So this is really important to understand for this part of the market. As you can see, there are really a lot of different opportunities. The subsectors in the equipment are many, from electronics to software, from interior equipment to marine and yard equipment, then deck hardware, sails, rigging, hydraulic system, ventilation, refrigeration, everything you need in your boat for the best experience you can have, and obviously all you need to for the propellers, for the machinery, for the mechanical systems that should be perfect in the moment when you use your boat. Then obviously you need clothing, life-saving and safety equipment that is a mandatory part of the equipment of the boat. Looking at the third pillar, the marine tourism, as you can see, there are many ways to use and to berth your boat and to store it. So there are marinas, which are the most common types in the Mediterranean, but you can find dry storage, which is more common in the Americas, where the trailer boats are really the basis for the market. And in the infrastructure side of boating tourism, obviously you've got a broad variety of services and of companies that you may find all around, from brokerage to charter, from sailing schools to cruise, skipper and captain agencies, services when you use your boat, logistics, and obviously marinas and repair and refit companies. When you want to invest in infrastructure, so in marinas, obviously you have to understand the balance between the demand and the supply, and understanding well that a new infrastructure is not useful if you do not have the related boat services that are needed for the consumer and for the users. And you must understand where to invest, because this is an infrastructure in China, as I told you before. It's perfect, but if you do not have customers, the investment is useless, as you can see. So this is the first part of the presentation. Now, quicker look at the Italian boating industry, which are the characteristics of our industry. So as you can see, this is the turnover trend in the last 20 years. As you can see, our industry, not just in Italy, but worldwide, has been strongly hit by the economic crisis of 2007-2008, with a reduction in turnover of 70% in some cases. Now, Italy, which is number 2 boat building industry all around the world, has quite recovered, and we've got a 90% turnover increase in the last 5 years. Our industry in Italy, we'll see, this is a provisional data for figure for 2019, will be around between 4 and 5 billion euros. And the sentiments of our companies for think that they will increase their turnover during the current year. So this is a really positive sentiment, and it's important to understand that not always the trends for boat building and for the industry are linked to the national situation of the GDP or the growth, because a large part of production is exported. So this is a plus for our sector. Just a second. Okay. So, what about the main indicators of our industry? These are the last definitive figures of our industry. So, as you can see, the boat building activities are a larger part of the sector, around 3 billion euros. Then we've got equipment that will be around 1.3 billion euros. Sorry. Okay. And the engine manufacturing is a smaller part of the business. So, as I told you before, Italy is the second worldwide manufacturer of boats. As you can see in this thermographic representation of the concentration of boat building companies, Italy with France, with some parts of North European countries like Poland, Germany, and the Netherlands are the main players in Europe, with North America with the US and Canada companies being the largest areas of manufacturing of boats. Which are the boat building territories in Italy? The boat building sector has got 2 main clusters, which are the Tyrrhenian cluster in the provinces between Genova to Livorno, and the Adriatic one from Monfalcone to Ancona, or the northern Adriatic part. So you can see the 2 maps, with the first one referring to the highest concentration of turnover in boat building, and the right one with the concentration of employees in the boat building companies. About turnover of boat building, you can see that the Italian production is mainly exported, with around 82% of the production that is exported. And a smaller part that is dedicated to the domestic market. So exports for our companies is really strategic. As you can see, in the last 10 years, the turnover share by destination of the boat production. If just after the 2008 crisis, the Italian market was quite important, then the exporting part has been the majority in the last years, and we are really happy that this continues to happen, because this means that our boats are appreciated worldwide. Looking at the subsectors of boat building, the main part, as you can see in the third column with figures, with 89% is made by inboard engine boats, as they include super yachts, which is the luxury segment. That is the most important part for the turnover of our industry. Then we've got outboard boats, sailboats, ribs and inflatables, and small boats that, as they are small, they are even less important in terms of turnover, but they are important in terms of quantity of boats sold. Looking at the luxury sector, this is the so we're talking about super yachts, meaning yachts of larger than 24 meters. This is I would say, the Bible of our companies worldwide, and it shows the orders of super yachts year after year. You can see that, for instance, in 2020, in January, worldwide we had around 800 orders of super yachts, and half of these orders, around 400, are from Europe, from Italian boat building companies. So we are number one producers of super yachts worldwide, and the second competitor in this moment is Turkey, with a market share of around 10%, and then we've got other countries like Germany, the Netherlands, UK, that are important competitors, but especially in certain segments. As you can see in this slide, the super yacht global fleet has seen a constant growth in the last 30 years, and it didn't show a sign of crisis or reduction of turnover even during the 2008 crisis. This means that the luxury segment has continued and will continue in the next years to increase the market share. I told you before that the strength of the Italian boat building industry is due especially to the export importance. If we look at the ranking of the 20 products in Italy whose exports have grown more in the last 20 years, you can see that in the classification Ateco, which is the NACE classification for Italy, pleasure and sporting boats showed in the last 20 years an increase by 240% in export. So this shows the importance of our industry worldwide. Which are the most important countries which import our boats? So we've got the US with 24% of the total. And then for flag reasons, we've got Cayman Islands and British Virgin Islands because they've got important registries for super yachts like Malta in Europe, and France, where we export around 7% of our boats in turnover. Italy and the Netherlands are the most strongest exporters all around the world. The Netherlands has got a specialization in mega yachts, so yachts over 70 meters long. And even if they manufacture around 20 to 30 yachts per year, these are yachts with a value of more than 100, sometimes 100 million euros per yacht. So you may understand the importance of export for this kind of boats. If we look at the Italian domestic market, as I showed you before, the leasing financing is, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Just a second, please. Just a second. Okay. So the marine leasing financing is the way we sell boats in Italy, in France, and in other European countries. So this is an important focus to understand how the Italian market is going. As you can see from the lows of 2012-2013, we've got growth in contracts and in turnover, which is a good sign. Yesterday they gave me the last figures for 2019, and we've got a turnover in leasing financing of more than 500,000 euros. So it's a good signal for the market. So, what is the formula for excellence? Why the Italian boats are so appreciated all around the world? Because we've got a mix of design, technology, materials, and interiors, with the possibility to have a sophisticated customization, unique style in interiors, and a superb design, and obviously highly skilled manpower, which is really the basis to go on and to have the boats appreciated worldwide. So, going rapidly to the third part about technological innovation. As I told you before, it's an important driver for the sector. Firstly, for the fact that we need to find year after year new propulsion systems, especially now with the new worldwide regulations from the International Maritime Organization, IMO, or the new European Green Deal that will work a lot on greenhouse gases emissions. So our industry has got to run and to find more efficient, less polluting engines. And the adoption of new systems like hybrid systems, solar panels, or new systems like fuel cells, hydrogen, which could be ready, I think, from now to 10 or 15 years. We've got to work a lot. Which are the advantages and limits of the electric propulsion, which is the first step in this new research and development of our engine manufacturers. Okay, we've got some limits due to the high cost of batteries that, as you may imagine, in the marine area, they could have big problems, not just for the weight and the volume of the batteries, but for the maintenance and for the charging. As it's really different from the road transport, as you do not have the energy recovery in the sea, it's really difficult to find the most efficient way to use a hybrid engine in our sector. Hydrodynamics are really important in two ways. Finding new anti-fouling systems in order to have new types of films and nanomaterials that could be used in the hull to avoid the use paints that are negative for the environment, and the optimization of the hydrodynamic resistance that can give good results, not just in speed, but in using less fuel for the use of the boat. Then we've got all the new materials and the new technology sectors. So we've got many companies investing in the use of carbon, nanomaterials, new types of resins, advanced composite, or tech substitutes, with a lot of studies on the materials, not just for the interiors, but even for the, I would say, the strategic parts of the hull, of the sails, of the masts of our boats that are really, really important for the future of our industry. New technologies, meaning having the possibility to have remote and smart inspections on board, not just for repairs, but even for surveys. So you do not have to go back to a maintenance area or in a marina, but you can do your repairs when you're in the middle of nowhere, and you just need a connection to send your data to the boat building maintenance system. And in a few years, we will see that additive manufacturing will be a second important part, because we're gonna be we're gonna have the possibility to remotely manufacture the spare parts that are needed in this moment, in the same moment and in real time on board. This is really it's the future of our supply of the products. Then the last important part, where we are looking at the whole industry, is the end-of-life issue for FRP composites. So how to avoid what is happening for planes, for wind blades, and for other composites industries. Today, the valorization options for FRP are limited. So recycling is not possible because composites are thermosetting materials, but it's possible to upcycle them. So we're working in Italy, but in many other countries, on projects to understand how to recycle and upcycle these products. This is an example of an Italian project that we're working on, but there are many others linked to the deconstruction of boats, and the future is based on DFD, so design for disassembly. So designing a boat in order to understand how to deconstruct it when it will be at the end of its life. Then we've got digital transformation with the application of Internet of Things, the predictive maintenance, augmented reality, and cloud manufacturing. This is not the future, but is what is happening today. So this was just a main view, but if you need some more insights on our sector, we wait for you at our 60th Genoa International Boat Show next September. So thank you for listening to my presentation.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Stefano. It was really interesting even to have this wide and rich presentation, because also with an insight on specific issues and topics that are really interesting for the whole, let's say, I mean, diversified stakeholders that could benefit from this. And actually, I would just ask to the audience if there is any questions related to the questionnaire, not a question for the webinar that we just listened to. So actually, I would just remind that you have the possibility to use the function of the platforms with the questions, and so we can try to give you an answer right now directly. And instead, I would just remind you that we will have even a webinar tomorrow that will have an insight on intellectual property rights, and we will have also some other webinars at the beginning of March related to ports and marinas, and also to a peak presentation for enterprises. In this sense, I think we can just wait just a few moments to see if there is any curiosity from the audience. And one more, I would like to thank Stefano for the presentation.
Thanks to you.
And we hope also, we know that Genoa is also a great event, so I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to be there. And at the same time, I would even to point out that there is a possibility even to send the questions not directly when we are online now, but there is an email, a reference email that all the audience can access while inscribing to the webinar. And we can also give an answer later on, so we can reach and vehicle any question to the speaker. And so actually at this moment I see that there are no curiosity from the audience, and I think that we can even go slightly to the end of this webinar. And one more time, thank you, Stefano, and also thank to all the listeners for being present today. And I would just invite to follow the activities of the Cluster Act project on the website that you can see on the screen, and to wish everyone a pleasant evening. And thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.